Excellent. Our presenters today are Trish and Jessica from the New Jersey Division of Developmental Disabilities, Office of Education on Self-Direction, and they will be presenting on the topic, Overview of Self-Directed Services. Ladies, the floor is yours.
Just give me a second. I'm going to try to share my screen again. I had it shared and then it was not. So just give me a second here. I'm not sure what is going on with my screen.
No worries.
Let me just make this bigger. There we go. It is not letting me share now, Amy. I don't know what's going on.
Good morning. Our presenters today are Trish and Jessica, and they're presenting from the New Jersey Division of Developmental Disabilities, Office of Education on Self-Direction, who will be presenting on the topic, Overview of Self-Directed Services. Ladies, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So again, apologies for that little technical difficulty I had there. I'm Trish Brennan. I am the Director of the Office of Education on Self-Directed Services, the Priority Waiting List and Special Projects. And I am joined today by the Assistant Director of our unit, Jessica Licona. We're both going to talk to all of you about the Priority Waiting List and our Office of Education on Self-Directed Services, giving you a really big screen overview, really, the broad strokes of all the different pieces that go into both of our units. But we want to start actually everything that we do. Every time we talk, we want to kind of hear what the mission and the vision for the Division of Developmental Disabilities, to the why of why we're doing all of these pieces. So the Division of Developmental Disabilities and the Department of Human Services, we have a mission to assure the opportunity for individuals with developmental disabilities to receive quality services and supports, participate meaningfully in their communities, as their right to make choices. So again, we start almost every presentation with that. Also, as a member state for the Community of Practice for Supporting Families, New Jersey was the 19th state to join this whole entire movement to really support people and their families. Wanted to really talk a little bit about how services and supports are evolving. So as we're thinking about the services and supports that are going to move due to transition from school to adult life, know that things have evolved over time. So in the very beginning, many years ago, it was the person and their family and their community. And then we saw a need for people to have services, right? So they came and they to the division and other places to look for services. But what we were seeing is that people were saying, well, I have this label of having a disability, so I need to go over here for supports and services rather than being completely ingrained in the community. What we're now moving to, because that was the traditional disability services world, where it was almost wrapping a bubble around the person because they have some sort of a label. Now we want to integrate supports and services. So it's the person within the context of their family, within the community they live in, and figure out how to support them best. So really asking questions differently. When I'm about to graduate, here's what I want to do. Here's how I want to live my life, not what services can I get? Really wanting people to think, how can I get that good life? Or what don't I want in my life as we're looking forward? So for every aspect, whether it be the priority waiting list, whether it be, what we want next in our life, if we're choosing to self-direct, we want people to be thinking about how they can be best supported to live their best lives within their own communities. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Community Care Program Priority Waiting List, because that is something that's under our office and something that you may have questions about. So hopefully we can answer some of your questions, because there are a lot of different myths out there about the Community Care Program Waiting List, what it is, what it means, what it does. So who are we, first off? We always our team likes to kind of give you a picture of who we are and what we do. So you can put a name to all of our faces. So again, it's myself, Jessica Licona, Kimberly Jessamine, Benson Mashad, Kenya Welsh, and William Phillips. And we're in each of the different offices as well. In the Greenbrook and Flanders office, we have Jennifer and Rosalind. In our Trenton office, here we go with Michael, Kelvin, Monique, Nadia, and Shakia. Mays Landing and Voorhees is Yvonne, Christina, and Atia. So what is the community care program waiting list? So prior to 2012, it was known as the residential placement waiting list. And what we heard from families was, and this is prior to us moving to fee for service, is that families were looking to have all-encompassing supports and services that they could build their own way, not just a residential placement, really looking to have supports and services meet the individual's best needs within their community. This with DDD now has two waiver programs, the supports program and the community care program. So upon entering DDD service system, you're enrolled in the supports program. If you wish to access the community care program, you can be added to the community care program waiting list. If you're going to request to be added to the community care program waiting list, you can work with your support coordinator once you're assigned the support coordinator and see if you meet the criteria for the community care program waiting list and be placed on the waiting list. There is some criteria to do this, and our unit makes sure that everything is filled in, completed, and once you're on the list, you receive a letter. Again, this is some of the papers that go into being on the community care program waiting list. And then I am here, sorry about that. I'm going to turn it over to Jessica, and she's going to give you a little bit more of the waiting list overview.
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Jessica Licona. I'm the Assistant Director in the Office of Education, Self-Directed Services, Waiting List, and Special Projects Unit. So as Trish said, there is some paperwork you fill out if you're interested in getting onto the community care program waiting list. And on that paperwork, you're going to see a section where you check off whether you're applying for the general waiting list or the priority waiting list. And there are some differences between the two. And the way you'll know which one you're eligible for, actually, Trish, can you go back one slide to the paperwork?
Yep. And that was, I realized that was a slide for you, and I just,
no problem.
Sorry about that. Glossed over it.
So you'll see there in the center, it says waiting list category request, select one, and there is general or priority. So if you are going to be applying for the priority list, what you would do is kind of look through those different criteria categories listed there in these boxes and see if you qualify for any of them. And if you do, what you would do is check off that box that you qualify for, and then take a look right to the right where it says required documentation. See what it says that you would need to submit along with this form, and then go ahead and submit. So the most common category that people are selecting is that both parents are over the age of 55. If both parents are over the age of 55, you are eligible for the priority waiting list. And in the required documents section, you would submit the copy of the driver's license or the birth certificate. Okay, so there are other criteria listed. So you would just take a look, see if you fit into any of those. If you do, you would check off that you are applying for the priority waiting list. If at this time you don't fit into any of these priority categories, you can select the general category. And Trish, you can go on to the next slide.
Sure. Sorry about that. There we go.
So just a little bit of the differences between the two. So for the priority waiting list, you are meeting eligibility criteria that you saw listed in those boxes. Once you are on the priority waiting list, you would receive an annual ranking letter every year, usually in June, that would let you know what your most up-to-date rank on the waiting list is. Okay, and then once you're reached at the top of that list, you would be assigned to a transition and education liaison for our unit, which is basically like a DDD case manager. And they would be assigned to kind of walk you through to see which waiver program you're eligible for and help you move through all of those next steps. Okay, but if you are on the general list, it is important to note that there is no movement on that general list right now. And that's because we need to get through the priority waiting list first before we can get to that general list. All right, so if you are on the general list and at any point in time you feel that you now meet the criteria for the priority list, you would have to go ahead and submit that form again and check off the criteria that you meet and submit that documentation that's needed, okay? So I always like to say that because you're not going to be moved automatically from the general list to priority. So it's just an important piece to know. If you're on general, you're not going to have a rank, you're not going to see movement, you're not going to receive rank letters. But if you're on the priority list, you'll know that because you're receiving that rank letter every year and moving along from there. Okay, Trish.
Okay.
So we have a CCP waiting list help desk, which is great. Anyone can reach out to ask any kind of questions about, hey, how do I apply to get onto the waiting list? Or I think I'm on the waiting list, I'm not sure, can you let me know? Or what is my current rank? We have a very helpful help desk, and it's ddd.ccpwaitlistrequests@dhs.nj.gov. Move to next. And go ahead,
Okay.
Trish.
Yep. So I actually just pulled these numbers up yesterday and updated them. So this is a real-time number. Know that if you go, you don't quote this because we update it all the time. But currently at this moment in time, there are 2,447 people on the priority waiting list. There are 1,804 people on the general waiting list, with a total of 4,251 people on the waiting list. So question we always get asked is, how many people do you reach each year? What we can tell you is based upon the budget allocation. So by the governor's office, the budget allocations for the Department of Human Services, each year we are allotted a specific number, and we cannot move forward to that number until we get the go ahead, the budget is signed off on. In this for this projected fiscal year is 2024. 400 people are able to be reached from the top of the priority list. That means our transition education liaisons are working with 400 people. In 2023, we also had 400 people that were able to reach from the top, which was awesome. 2022, 200 people. So you can see it just depends upon our fiscal climate and what's going next. So each year we are able to outreach to people from the top of the list, and that's, trying to think about how you go forward. So how will I know what my rank is and its movement on the priority list? So annually, we send out ranking letters. Now, typically they're done in June, and we, Jess, myself, and all of our staff, we fold all the letters up, and we have a really actually kind of a fun day. We, do a mass mailing and send them out to everybody. And this year was the first year that our iRecord capacity, so our electronic system, and all actually worked on the same day as the United States Postal Office came and picked them up, that information was actually sent out electronically to people as well, to identify you with your name and where you were on the priority waiting list. So every year, annually, by our regulation, we have to tell people their rank on the priority waiting list. So after you saw the slide ahead, how many people are reached each year. After somebody is, we go through ranking, then we have to talk about the people who are reached. So when we were able to reach somebody on the list, they are assigned a transition education liaison of our unit. So they're the person who's going to work with you to transition you to the appropriate waiver program that you're eligible to receive. They are going to, work hand in hand with your support coordinator to move it to next steps and go from there. So again, you will get it when you're reached, you're going to get a letter in the mail, and then it'll be followed up by a call with your transition education liaison. So here we go. When you've been reached, right, you're going to get that letter, and then your transition education liaison is going to contact you. So some of those people that I showed you some pictures of who are in those offices are going to be at the other end of the phone, explaining to you that you've been reached, what's next, what's available to you, asking you your why. Why did you get put on the list? What were you expecting? What are your next steps? What do you want to have in that good life, that all-encompassing good life? So they're going to work with you through all those next pieces. And they're going to work with your support coordinator as well. They're going to tell you that you've been reached in the priority waiting list and move you through those next steps. They're also going to invite you to a virtual welcoming session to talk a little bit about you're going to hear what it means to be reached, and to hear some stories from families who were reached, who are in similar situations as you are, as you move forward with those next steps. So if you're wondering, what happens next or what possibilities are out there, we're going to walk you through next steps in an interactive session, as well as having your transition education liaison work with you for all these next pieces of everything. So again, when you're reached, you're going to be assigned a transition education liaison. They're going to confirm that you have Medicaid. If you do not have Medicaid, they're going to walk you through the next steps for, reaffirming your Medicaid. They're going to walk you through something called the New Jersey Comprehensive Assessment Tool. You will have completed that before, but they're going to make sure that you have the most accurate scores there. They're going to also make sure that you're going to be receiving the waiver service that you're most eligible to receive. Again, not everyone is going to be eligible for the community care program. It's if you are not eligible for the community care program based upon the level of care review and level of care needs, there's going to be additional discussions about other resources that are available to you. So when you are eligible for the community care program, you are going to work with your transition education liaison and your support coordinator to help you through those next steps in planning out what it is that you're looking for. Many times people are waiting for quite some time to be availed the opportunity to be reached, and they aren't sure exactly what they want out of the next steps. So you're going to work with your transition education liaison and your support coordinator and figure out, okay, so what is it that I want to have in my good life? Now that I have been reached, how can I get there? What's next? Some of the tools that you can utilize to do this, so the life trajectory worksheet or the integrated support star, really trying to get down on paper prior to leaving school. What are the technology that we utilize? What are our personal strengths and assets? What relationships can we build upon? What eligibility-based specific tools do I have, and what community-based tools are there? Getting this information on paper, I'm looking at the star right now, and that's the multicolored sheet, is really helpful to kind of sort through next steps. And you can even split the star and do like, what do I have now and what do I want for the future, and figure those pieces out. You can also utilize the life course trajectory tool to really figure out what do you want for the good life. And so many times when people say, well, I have no idea what I want in my good life. I have no idea what I'm asking for. What do you want? I have no idea. I don't know. Especially if it's a student who's leaving, I don't know. But people know what they don't want. So many times, well, what don't you want in your life? And you can, think of it as simply as, what do you want to do for lunch today? Many times you go, well, I don't know. But then we say, well, what don't you want for lunch today? Well, I'm not feeling like pizza today, and I'm not feeling like Chinese. Okay, so then you say, okay, so then maybe we want to go to the deli down the street and get a sandwich. So it's thinking of those different things. What is it that you don't want? So many times people know what they don't want, and they can use that to build that vision for the good life, to figure out what you do want and what you want to hear, and figuring out the next steps. So utilizing these tools is so essential to thinking about what somebody wants in their life, not basing it upon what services and supports they need, but how can you support a person to live their best life in the community, changing that conversation, figuring out what technology could be utilized, what can help a person to be supported best within their community, what relationships can we build upon, what social capital do we already have that we can enhance. So figuring all these things out by using these tools is so critical. So that was a brief overview of our waiting list, part of our unit. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, and then I'll turn it over to Jess in a little bit, our Office of Education on Self-Directed Services. We are a new office that has been in existence for about 18 months. So in the self-directed conference that was in February of 2022, we were announced as an actual office. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about why we exist, who we are, and what are, what you can write into us and ask questions on. And Jess is going to talk about some of the awesome things that we have been doing as an office. So who are we? Here we are again, right? Showing you the pictures and putting a name behind all of us. We are throughout the state. You see, we have people in the Freehold office, the Flanders office, the Voorhees office, Mays Landing, Trenton, really spanning the whole state, making sure that you can be educated for what it means to self-direct. So what is the Office of Education on Self-Directed Services? The goal is to provide a centralized place for the delivery of education and training for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities receiving services, their families, advocates, support coordinators, interested community partners, and all other stakeholders. A really, a hub for them to go to ask questions about what is self-direction. So again, we are staffed by subject matter experts on best practices in self-directed services. And we really, want to make sure that people are the best educated consumer so that they are empowered to make the choice of self-direction. Again, we provide education, we facilitate networking meetings. Jess is going to talk to you some more about the really awesome networking sessions that we've been doing. We started off virtually, we've moved to in-person. For people, families, advocates, really focusing in on self-advocates as well. So the actual people who are receiving the services, having some peer-to-peer networking, providing technical assistance for the service of support brokerage, for the agencies who are providing it and for the people and the families who are utilizing it. We really work hard to integrate information about self-directed system into our whole entire state so that people understand what it means to self-direct and people understand what it means to have the choice about self-direction and understand our division service delivery system. So what is self-direction? It is an alternative to agency delivered model, which we would say is provider managed. The person, not the provider, has the authority to hire, screen, train, and supervise their own staff. They utilize something called a fiscal management services agency, or as said, a fiscal intermediary. It's part of a large self-directed service paradigm shift. So if we think about those three circles I said before, as I was talking about how people evolved over time for the way in which we've delivered services. When we first thought about services, we said, okay, so the provider and the professionals are going to identify the type of supports and services that a person receives. If a person is self-directing their services, the person is the expert at identifying their needs, preferences, and desired support services. If it's a provider managed setting, the traditional agencies take the responsibility for hiring the direct support worker. In self-directed services, the person hires and trains the staff that we provide the services and supports. So again, it's a complete and total paradigm shift in the ways in which services and supports are delivered. The person and their family are at the center of all aspects of it, and they utilize the fiscal intermediary. So again, families in the beginning say, well, does the dollars actually come to me when I have a budget? And the answer is the fiscal intermediary is the one that it goes through, and they work in partnership with their support coordinator to figure out those next steps. So it is a lot more responsibility, but when a lot of times you see people who are self-directing have a little bit more, since they're in charge, they have a little bit more of the ability to figure out what they want rather than having just a provider decide. Again, two different delivery models. Both are available options to the state of New Jersey upon graduation and upon a determination of eligibility. Self-direction promotes personal choice and control over the delivery of the services within a budget, whereas our traditional provider managed setting services are provided by agencies. In self-direction, the participant or designated representative assumes the employer and budget authority responsibilities. In a traditional setting, the provider is doing all of those pieces. Again, our goal as the Office of Education and Self-Directed Services is to educate people on what self-direction is, so they have the ability to make that choice. For some folks, traditional services is exactly what works. And for others, we want people to see that, they have the option, they have the choice, and figure those next pieces out. Self-direction has been around for quite some time, since the late 90s, actually. And in 2002, it became even bigger when a core group of family members came to us and said, if you gave us dollars, we could do this better. And we really began to implement it within our whole entire system throughout New Jersey, and nationally, it's becoming a very viable option for all people. So just to give you kind of an idea of, what it could look like. If I chose to self-direct, what could it look like? How would my schedule be? So this is just somebody who's using a little bit of provider managed and the rest is self-direction. So maybe Mondays and Wednesdays are the days they like that people do things great for at the day program that is close by. So Mondays and Wednesdays, they go to the day program. Tuesdays, there's some support employment and some dinner with a support staff. Thursday, they're volunteering with a self-directed employee, having lunch with friends, going to the gym with a self-directed employee, again, going out shopping, taking a walk, all with self-directed staff. So figuring out all those different pieces and putting it all into a schedule. Now, someone could choose not to use a traditional provider at all and completely create their whole entire week. But as you see, this does take some responsibility on the person, upon their parent, upon their guardian, if they have one, upon anybody supporter who's going to help them put together all these pieces. So it does take a lot of responsibility to put it together, to hiring and the next steps and organization of staff if you're choosing to self-direct. If you have a provider, they are doing all these pieces for you. I am going to move it over to Jessica, who's going to talk to you a little bit about commonly used terms.
Thanks, Trish. Yeah, so these are some commonly used terms when we're talking about self-direction and self-directed services. We have self-directed employee, or SDE, goods and services, fiscal intermediary, or FI, supports broker, your circle of support, supported decision-making, budget authority, and employer authority. So we're going to kind of walk through all of these terms and what they mean in the slides to come. Trish, you can go ahead and.
Sure.
Okay, so what is self-direction? Self-direction is when the person and their family or their circle of support are in charge of all aspects of their services. Trish, you can go ahead and click a couple more times so those other boxes.
So the boxes pop up, of course.
Perfect. So when you're self-directing, that means that you are hiring and supervising your own self-directed employees. And those self-directed employees work for you. They don't work for a provider agency. You can also purchase what we call goods and services in the community that are available to everyone, not just people with disabilities. And you'll have the option to hire a supports broker who can help to guide and assist you through self-directing your services. Trish, you can push one more time. Click. It's gonna.
The last box will pop up. I was afraid to get to me. I know this is another one. I was like, am I gonna get that one yet?
And anyone who is self-directing will be enrolled with what we call a fiscal intermediary, which is a private company contracted to manage payments to your self-directed employees and pay those goods and services vendors from funds allocated by your DDD budget. So we're actually going to go through all of these underlined terms a little bit more in depth as we proceed. So employer authority. If you decide to self-direct, you will have what we call employer authority, which means the person and their family or representative have the authority to recruit, hire, supervise, and terminate when necessary the staff that they choose to provide their supports and services. Trish?
Yep, here you go.
So self-directed employees, or SDEs. So a self-directed employee is hired directly by the person and their family. They receive their paycheck from what we call a fiscal intermediary. And your self-directed employee is supervised, trained, they receive their schedule from, they have their timesheets signed by the person and the family who hired them. So in this graphic here, you see people sitting around the table, reviewing resumes, trying to find people that they would like to interview, that maybe someone would meet their needs and they would want to hire them to provide their supports and services. Now, sometimes when someone decides to self-direct, they already have someone in mind, someone that they know and trust that they would want to hire as their self-directed employee. Could be a friend, it could be a family member, in which case that's great. And the process is is fairly straightforward. You would proceed with the fiscal intermediary, get them onboarded, and go from there. But other times, people don't necessarily have someone that they already know in mind, and people get really creative with how they go about recruiting their self-directed employees. People will be posting job ads on Indeed or other employment search engines. They post flyers at local community colleges or local community spots. And they really try to, through their community and through their networks, find people who might be available to work during the time that they need and that really kind of fit their needs. And a lot of times people say, well, why would someone choose to self-direct versus going with a provider agency who it could be considered a lot simpler, where a provider could just send the staff right to your home. And I always explain it like, you're receiving services in your own home, and these staff are coming into your house, working with your family. And sometimes people just like that option to be able to choose who that person is that they feel comfortable with and who works best with the person needing support. So self-directed option will give you that. You can go ahead, Trish. So budget authority. Everybody in New Jersey has what we call budget authority, and it means having a flexible budget to purchase a range of supports and services of your choosing that meet your needs. And everybody's budget is determined by the New Jersey Comprehensive Assessment Tool, or the NJCAT. You'll get your tier, and that tier determines your budget. And then working with your support coordinator and through the person-centered process, you would choose the supports and services that work best for you. Okay, and we mentioned goods and services. You can use your DDD budget to purchase goods and services. So goods and services refers to physical objects or non-employee services that would lessen the person's reliance on Medicaid services and or promote safety at home or community inclusion. So a goods and service is not disability specific. It is a community vendor that anyone might choose to utilize. So things like a gym membership or finding a class in the community that's of interest, transportation, assistive technology, home or vehicle modifications, etc. So if you're interested in utilizing your budget to purchase goods and services, you would work with your support coordinator and submit a goods and services request form and get it approved. And then the fiscal intermediary would actually pay the vendor through your DDD budget. Okay, so keep talking about fiscal intermediary, or the FI. So again, a fiscal intermediary, it's a private company that's contracted to manage the payments to your self-directed employees. So they send your self-directed employees their paychecks. They also send payments to the goods and services vendors, all from funds allocated by your DDD budget. The FI will handle the payroll taxes, the onboarding tasks for your SDEs. They will do the background checks and all of those pieces. So there are actually two models. You get to choose which model of fiscal intermediary that works best for you. We have the vendor fiscal employer agent model, which is currently with Public Partnerships, or PPL. And we have the agency with choice model, which is with Easter Seals. So there are a couple of differences between them, and you totally get to choose which one works best for you. If you are going with the vendor fiscal employer agent model or public partnerships, one of the big differences is you would need to be the employer of record, which means you would need to apply for a federal employer identification number, or EIN. If you're with agency with choice, the Easter Seals would act as the employer of record for you. Now, with both models, you are hiring, supervising, doing the schedules for your staff. There's no difference there. It's just a matter of who is the employer of record. Okay. And if you would like to offer health benefits to your self-directed employees, you can do that through the agency with choice model with Easter Seals. You can't offer health benefits to your SDEs with public partnerships. Okay, so with that, There with Easter seals, there is what we call a per member per month fee that could be charged to your DDD budget. And that just all depends on how many self-directed employees you have and whether or not you elect to offer them health benefits of, what that fee would come out of your DDD budget for that service. But with PPL, there's no charge to your budget for the FI service at all. So again, there's a lot of information. It's actually all on our website, which we could put in the chat in just a moment. But you would work with your support coordinator, talk through these differences, kind of figure out which one works best for you, and your support coordinator would help you get enrolled with the fiscal intermediary. So a supports broker. A supports broker is different from your support coordinator. And a lot of times we get this question of, I already have a support coordinator. Why do I need a supports broker? And what is the difference between the two? So we like to, kind of educate on this because supports broker is a really crucial service, very important service for people who are self-directing. So if your support coordinator, when you join the DDD service system, you're going to select a support coordination agency, and you're going to get a support coordinator who is going to help you to, pick all the services and supports you need and get those services and supports into your individualized service plan so that they can be paid for with your DDD budget. Your support coordinator is going to be doing things like monthly monitoring, calling you to check on you to make sure you're okay, see if you need anything. If there was ever an emergency, you would reach out to your support coordinator because they are your connection to the division. A supports broker, on the other hand, is a service that if you're self-directing, you can choose to utilize if you'd like. And a supports broker is going to help people who are self-directing through self-directing their services because there's a lot that's going on. They can provide things like assistance with recruiting and hiring and training your self-directed employees because not everybody just kind of knows how to go about and do that recruiting, writing job ads, posting them on Indeed, going through the interview process. So a supports broker can really help families with a lot of those pieces. A supports broker can also help with what we call community mapping. And that's when they would help you get to know what's out in your community. Things like maybe you're looking for volunteer opportunities or goods and services in the community or other resources or things going on that you could tap into. And supports brokers also can help with building what we call your circle of support. Trish, you can go ahead and move to the next slide. So a circle of support and self-direction is really important. I always like to explain it like if you are, utilizing a provider agency, for example, you might have what is called an interdisciplinary team or IDT. And that IDT is comprised of all kinds of professionals from all different disciplines, and they all come together every year to help you plan and develop your, individualized service plan together as a team. But when you're self-directing, you may not be utilizing any provider agencies. So we talk about building what we call the circle of support. And your circle of support is people in your life who you trust to help guide and work with you towards decision-making, making decisions in your life, making sure that someone else besides mom and dad kind of know what's going on so that in the event that there was ever a time when you couldn't do it anymore, that there's someone else that kind of knows that could step in and kind of keep things going either for a short time or maybe even forever. So in our office, we really like to help people and families build that circle of support. And believe it or not, it's not always your closest family and your closest friends. Many times it's, people get creative. It could be a former teacher that they really had a connection with, and that teacher, wants to continue, being involved. It could be another family member who also is self-directing their services. There's a lot of different options out there. And if you go to the next slide, Trish. Yes. Our unit is like really dedicated to helping families build that circle of support. So one of the ways that we do that is we host family networking sessions all over the state. So if you look on our website, I do have QR codes there. If you know how to use that, you basically would open up the camera on your cell phone and put it up to that QR code and a link would pop up if that's helpful to you. And that would bring you to our list of family networking sessions that we have going on across the state, and we update that all the time. So at our family networking sessions, we usually get a conference room in a local library. We send out a flyer through our help desk. Families will register to attend. And it's great because we all get together and we have coffee and water and cookies, and we just talk about, different ways that we can basically support each other. Someone might come with a question because they're brand new to self-direction, and there's other family members who are actually doing it there that can kind of step in and give you that advice that you might be looking for. So we have actually had families who have said they've built their entire circle of support just from attending our family networking sessions. They're really, really powerful. It's one of my favorite things that we do. And it's great to just get out into the community and talk to people in person, face to face. So we encourage you to take a look at those dates and see if there's anything near you. If there's not one in your local area, you could always reach out to our help desk and let us know that you want us to come, to your county, and we would be happy to set something up as well. We also do webinar style lunch and learn series, so virtual opportunities for people to learn. This was our latest one that we did on September 29th. It's already passed, but it is posted on our OESDS website, which also, as soon as I'm done presenting, I will put that, or if Trish, I don't know if you want to put the link in the chat. You can find recordings that we have from our various lunch and learn series that you can just watch anytime at home, that are really great. And here's that help desk that I keep talking about. So we have our Office of Education on Self-Directed Services help desk, and that is ddd.oesds@dhs.nj.gov. And we have our Office of Education Self-Directed Services staff monitoring that help desk every day. If you want to ask in about quite anything you have, any questions you have about self-direction, or what's a supports broker and how do I find one, we can really kind of help you to find that. Yeah, so any questions you have, you can ask to join our mailing list. Right, and we're moving on to questions. So we're going to take your questions in just a moment. I don't know if you want to go through the resources in the next slide.
Sure, I will go through the resources. I also do want to address some of the questions that are in the chat. I was going to type them in the chat, but then I thought we do have a good 15 minutes at the end, so I was just going to read them out loud and address them in person, so that would just work for people. Good. April's giving me a thumbs up, so that means it's a good way to do it. But some of the resources we have here, again, I can't express how awesome our networking sessions have been. It was kind of one of those things that we were hoping would take off, and it did. And every session we learned something from each other who comes to the session. And they all are a little bit different depending upon the demographics of the area, because as you all know, the state of New Jersey is completely different from one tip to the other. And it's great to get people together to share their lived experience, and so that we can hear and come up with solutions from the division. So again, some of the resources we have here, don't worry, Amy has assured me that this copy of this PowerPoint in PDF form is going to get out to all of you, so you don't have to be vigorously taking notes on any of this. And even if we don't get to drop in the chat, you will get a copy. If not, you can always email Jessica or I, and we can get it out to you as well. Or our help desk, because our help desk is a help desk at the division that will give you that personal response. We have a different person on the help desk each day, but it's one of the folks that you saw on our screen that had our office that you can put a face to. One of those faces at the end of our help desk. It's not just a generic response. And if they don't quite know the answer, they'll find you the answer. And if they want more information from you, they will set up a time that they can have a call with you, and you can just ask whatever questions you need. So we really want to make sure that we are, personalized, getting people the right information, especially for people who are about to graduate, as you all are. So figuring out, going from school to adult life, what's next? What do I do when that school bus stops? How do I get there to where I'm going? Where's my road go next? Again, there is a quick guide out there for families that talks about our community care program and our, supports program. This is a Understanding Self-Directed Services. It's available at the Bog Center's link, and you can just click on that. You'll be able to get these next pieces. Talks about the role of the support broker, Jess, briefly glossed over some of the things that you can utilize a support broker for and why you might want to utilize a support broker. If self-direction is something that you're looking to do, but you're not sure if you want to take on all of that responsibility and the next steps, and you just think you need someone to help guide you, they'll be able to assist you as well. Again, deciding to self-direct, making choices, becoming empowered. This is part of the Bug Center publications. Jess is putting some things in the chat as I'm speaking, so that's awesome. You guys can take that out down, those of you who are out there. So I am going to stop screen sharing, and I'm going to focus on some of the questions that are in the chat right now. Oh, great. Ashley just added in her peer-to-peer networking sessions. Again, they are extremely energizing and enthusiastic. They are for people who are utilizing services they want to meet they do not meet in person, they meet virtually because, you know, transportation is always an issue. And it just, you know, they've been great to get people together sharing what's worked for them. So one of the questions I am seeing is someone's NJCAT tier designation one of the criteria used for priority waiting list eligibility? It is not. That is not any of the criteria that's here for being put on the priority waiting list. For community care program eligibility, yes, the NJCAT, the New Jersey Comprehensive Assessment tool is utilized because the person needs to meet the level of care. So that's the same level of care the person would have in an institutional setting to be fully supported within their community. But to be put on the priority waiting list, it is not, we are not looking at the NJCAT here. There are other criteria that are being looked at, and that is actually available in our division circular number 8. Okay, I'm looking here. What is a transition and education liaison? And what's the difference from a case manager? So your transition education liaison, we just recently rebranded ourselves. We weren't known as the transition case manager, but we wanted to really identify a little bit differently because everybody gets a support coordinator. And our job is to educate families so they are empowered to make the right choices. So we are the liaison between the person, the support coordinator, and figuring out the next steps for being reached in the priority list. So they're going to provide you all the education you need. Or if they can't provide to you, they're going to find that information out and get you that next steps for educating a person for being reached on the priority waiting list, what it means, what is all-encompassing community care program, what is the level of care. They're going to complete the level of care if that's something you need. So they're going to work with you. Yes, they're very similar to a case manager, but they're going to partner with you and your support coordinator to help be the liaison between the division and you and your support coordinator, and provide you all the education you need for that. Another question that was asked is, if you have received DED eligibility but have not yet been assigned a support coordinator, can you fill out the waiting list request form? Yes, you can fill out the waiting list request form once you're eligible for division services.
Actually, even before, if you meet the criteria, if both parents are over the age of 55, you can submit that form, or if you meet some of those other criteria.
So the question is, what does the support coordinator do? A support coordinator, person, they do pretty much everything of care coordination for the person to have a New Jersey individualized support plan. So they're doing all those pieces. The transition education liaison coordinator is just when you're reached on the priority list. They're going to see you through being reached to being removed from the priority list. They're going to see you through just that process. The support coordinator is going to do all other aspects. So let me see. So I understand you apply to be on a wait list. Oh, it just moved. No, so one of the things that once you're eligible for services, you're made available to be on the supports program. So there are 2 waivers in our system. So again, you will be on, and recently we did a large outreach to everybody who was on the priority waiting list and made them available for all for the supports program while they were waiting. So nobody is waiting with no services. That people are waiting for the community care program, which is all encompassing supports and services for those people who meet the level of need. So the level of care need for something similar to institutional type placement. So all encompassing supports and services in the community, but people have supports from the supports program as soon as they're about to graduate. So
Right. So, right. The question was, so no one actually received services for years because you have to be on the waiting list. And no, that's the great thing. As soon as you guys enter our DDD service system, you will be able to choose a support coordination agency and get a support coordinator right away. And you will have a budget on the supports program that you can use to purchase supports and services, because there's no waiting list for the supports program. There's only a waiting list for the community care program. So everybody will be able to get services as soon as you enter our service system.
right, exactly. So as soon as you're entered in our service system, and you have a support coordinator, you'll be able to access the supports program. That's the beauty of now having two waiver programs. So the waiting list is for the community care program services, not waiting list for services at all. And again, Jill, I see that you're ready, and you can write into our help desk and we will work with you one-on-one. We can have a call as well. If a person needs to reside in a group home or supervised apartment living, is that the only available through the CCP program? Or is it also available? So a licensed residential setting is only available through the community care program. So that's looking into a licensed group home or licensed supervised apartment living, that is the only available through our community care program. But people have come up with pretty creative, unique housing situations with the supportive housing connection, with housing vouchers, and going through. So we really want people not to just think of, oh, a group home is the only thing that's available. We want you to think of, where do I want to live? What are my next steps to getting to those next pieces? What are the next pieces of my life that I want to accomplish? So figuring out those different pieces first, before saying, oh, I definitely need a group home. Let's think about why first, and then start to explore those next possibilities. So the question here is, the difference between self-directed services and agency-directed services are that self-directed services allows you to hire your own workers, but the other option matches you with the agency. Actually, yes, but. So I'm going to answer the yes. Self-direction allows you to hire your own workers. The other option, you select an agency. So we don't match you to an agency. You're going to work with your support coordinator. You're gonna select the agency, and they'll do your all-encompassing provision of services. And then I see Amy is writing that the next workshop's at 1 p.m. So I think we have to stop our questions. But we do want to thank all of you for attending. Hope that you took something away from our session of learning value. And encourage you to write into either one of our help desks if you have questions. Amy's welcome to continue. We have more time for the next workshop.
Are there any other questions that people want to submit while we have our fantastic presenters? All right, this was excellent. Well, that concludes the workshops on overview of self-directed services by Trish and Jessica from the New Jersey Division of Developmental Disabilities, Office of Education on Self-Direction. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and resources, ladies.
Thank you for having us.